Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Democratic Television. My name is Renee Hoyos, and I am your host for this evening. Tonight we have two guests with us who are working with the Sunrise Movement in Knoxville. They are Logan Heisen and Simon Jolly. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, you're very welcome. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about this because as we are filming, Greta Thunberg has won the Times Person of the Year. Mm-hmm. And this is really significant because she's been talking a lot about the effects of climate on your generation and on generations to come. And I think it's great that she's getting a lot of national attention. And I think this really folds in well to what we're going to talk about today, mm-hmm. which is the Sunrise Movement. Mm-hmm. So I am going to ask you, Logan, first to explain to us what the Sunrise Movement is about.
Yeah, thank you. So the Sunrise Movement is a national movement of young people who are dedicated to fighting climate change and passing a Green New Deal, mm-hmm. which would create millions of new good-paying jobs across the country. And we do that mostly by talking to our fellow young people and our families and friends and elected officials, trying to get them to support a Green New Deal, mm-hmm. declare climate emergencies across the country, and implement renewable technology.
Great, yeah, those are good, ambitious goals. So we've started this chapter here in Knoxville. Why don't you, Simon, why don't you go ahead and tell us about what your plans are for the Knoxville chapter?
Yeah, so this semester we've done a lot of awesome things in the Knoxville community, from hosting 2 climate strikes to hosting this climate action art event last week. Mm-hmm. And we're really creating a dialogue around environmental issues in the Knoxville area that I feel like other like SEC schools and other parts of the South might not be having in their communities. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really important, the work that we're doing here, to talk about climate change, talk about the need for a Green New Deal for the Knoxville community, and just raise awareness, as well as hold our politicians to account and bring about action in this coming election cycle.
Great. So who have you talked to already, and what has been the response to your requests?
So at our first climate strike on November 22nd, mm-hmm. we talked to Mayor Madeline Rogero and asked her administration to declare a climate emergency mm-hmm. for the city of Knoxville. And we went to the city council building and we were met by Erin Gill, the Office of Sustainability mm-hmm. manager, and she read a letter from Mayor Rogero, who was unable to attend, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But she basically said that she admired our efforts and wanted us to keep going forward with what we were doing, but we should probably talk more with India Kincannon, who's the mayor-elect for the city of Knoxville. Mm-hmm. And so we're planning on getting in touch with her about declaring a climate emergency in the coming months.
Great. Have you talked to any of the city council or county commission elected officials?
We're in touch with, Amelia Parker is quite supportive of our movement, and we have contacted a couple of different city council members and didn't really hear a response back when we asked them about the climate emergency that they could declare.
Oh, do you remember who you spoke to?
I remember we sent a letter to all of the city council members. Mm-hmm. So
city council members respond to their requests. It is really important, I think, that we get elected officials on board, and that is kind of difficult. Mm-hmm. Living in the South, are there a lot of chapters forming in the South because of those reasons, or what are the reasons for forming, in southern states? Mm-hmm. Do you think?
Well, there are quite a few hubs that are forming in the southern states, honestly. We have mm-hmm. 3 in Tennessee alone, 1 in Nashville, 1 in Franklin, and 1 in Knoxville. And I think another one in Memphis is mm-hmm. forming pretty soon, too. Okay. So, and then there's a bunch of really big hubs in Asheville, and especially in like the TVA area.
Mm-hmm. In the watershed, yeah. Mm-hmm. There was a big article, there's been several articles about coal ash contamination, and mm-hmm. I think moving away from fossil fuels is going to be really smart in the future. You won't have people sick and dying, you won't have big expensive cleanups.
Right.
I mean, what can a solar panel do to you? Maybe it can fall on you.
Right, and Knoxville is in a unique position where mm-hmm. we're the hub, or we're the headquarters for the TVA, so
right.
Knoxville's in a unique position to influence anything that TVA does, and could potentially encourage them to implement more renewable technologies into their portfolio.
Now, the new TVA leader, the new CEO, comes from Canada, where he did do a lot of renewable energy up there. Have you had a chance to reach out to them?
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
Not
I think.
yet.
Yeah, put that on the list because I
Yeah.
think that would be really good. He seems very open to increasing the renewable portfolio. So tell me, why did you guys get involved in the Sunrise Movement?
So I guess I'll let you start since you
Okay.
founded the chapter, Logan.
Oh,
so.
Sure.
Logan is
Yeah.
the founder. You didn't tell me that.
Yeah. So in the 2018 election cycle, in November and December, Sunrise Movement National hosted a couple of big sit-ins in Nancy Pelosi's office, the new Democratic leader of the House of Representatives, and they had this big sit-in, and AOC came and talked to them, and there was a lot of excitement, and I saw that and really wanted, and I said to myself, oh, I want to do that someday. So I hopped on one of their kind of interest calls and got the resources to start the hub, and we've kind of been expanding since then.
Great. And then you were driven when you saw that, but are there other, how does climate change, how do you think of climate change and how it is going to affect your life?
My family is very environmentally conscious. We've been recycling all our lives. My mom started a recycling program in our school system back home. So we've always been like locally, sustainably based, things like that. And recently we went to the climate march. I think it was 4 years ago now, science march, something like that. And there were a bunch of people in the rain, it was cold, and we were all asking for action on climate change, and I think that's kind of stuck with me all these years. And then when I saw that action in Nancy Pelosi's office, it kind of just sparked. I said, oh, this is actually something I can do as a young person. There are other young people around the country who are organizing to fight climate change, and so I wanted to be a part of that. And
Great. Simon?
Yeah. Again, like my family's also been very environmentally conscious. I, spent a lot of my time growing up in our public lands, and I really found a passion for the natural environments that we have here in East Tennessee. And growing up, you in high school and in college, I've just become more and more educated on the facts that climate change is an existential threat to our generation. It's probably the most important issue that we need to address in this moment. And when I saw Sunrise, this national brand for young people to come together to hold our politicians accountable and make them take action on climate change, I couldn't think of a better way to get involved. Millions and millions of lives on the line. We continue to see the effects of massive weather events that killed hundreds of people, and we need to be taking action today and for the protection of future generations.
Yeah, it is indeed a grave situation. So when you guys have asked for Knoxville to declare a climate emergency, can you tell me what that actually means and what you'd like Knoxville to do?
For sure. Declaring a climate emergency is basically just elevating the climate crisis to the level of urgency that it requires, and to galvanize the city, government, and businesses and consumers in Knoxville to invest in renewable technology, make conscientious decisions, sustainable decisions.
Yeah, how do we create a dialogue around climate in the Knoxville area? I think this is one way that we move that forward from the city government to the larger community by having vocally declared a climate emergency for the city of Knoxville. That'll do a great deal to raise awareness for the importance of this issue.
Yeah, there's been some talk about this area being very climate robust. We're in a really unique situation geographically in that we're on the western side of the Smokies, so when hurricanes hit, we generally don't get it. We're mountainous, so we don't get a lot of tornadoes much. I mean, we've had some, but we don't have that many. And so it seems that this place would be a great place for climate refugees. And it kind of has been. Like, people are wanting to move here. And so how are we going to adjust to make this place climate refugee friendly and also protect it from the effects of climate change? So one thing you want to do is sort of curtail development. And how does that happen? Right. I mean, so there are some big questions in the future for this city. Like, how are we going to cut down every tree to make room for people coming here, and trees are protecting us against a changing climate. So there's just a lot really to consider.
And I mean, like, in response to that, the first part of the Green New Deal that was proposed in Congress was making public housing more sustainable. So I think, as we move forward, making sure that, we're protecting those that are most largely impacted by, the negative effects of our economy, which will also be directly tied to climate change. That's an important first step for the Green New Deal as we move forward.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that was actually an issue that was heavily discussed during the city mayor election. Housing was very big. We're losing affordable housing here, and what does that mean? So people are going to be moving out into the counties, and if they move out into the counties, and we're developing these areas that we may not want to be developing. I mean, it's a huge question. So your goals are the climate change, and then to declare this climate emergency, or the Green New Deal. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the Green New Deal, what's in it, and what you like about it?
For sure. The Green New Deal is as it stands right now, it's a resolution in Congress and the Senate. Well, it failed the Senate, but...
was it ever brought up in the Senate? Was there a vote in the Senate?
I think it was a absent president vote, which didn't do anything. But basically, the Green New Deal is a proposal that says that we need to transition our economy into a 100% renewable energy, carbon neutral economy within the next 10 years or so. And that would require a massive investment into our economy, into renewable technologies, and also ensuring that it's a just and equitable transition. So that we prioritize marginalized communities and people who are most affected by climate change and who would most be affected by a change in the economy. So for example, the Green New Deal would eliminate fossil fuel production entirely. So people who work in fossil fuel extraction jobs and refining jobs, things like that, the Green New Deal in it says that we would have a federal jobs mandate, basically, and retraining grants, things like that, so that we could transition those people into renewable energy jobs so that they wouldn't have to lose their jobs, and then we'd create millions of jobs on top of that.
Gotcha. Okay. And so it should be, was it not introduced as a bill?
It was introduced as a resolution.
As a resolution,
So mostly just saying, this is what we wanted, this is what we need to do, and then we'll legislate underneath that.
Underneath that, yeah. It's probably...
Which Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders introduced the Green New Deal for Public Housing Act.
For public housing, okay.
Which is the first part of the Green New Deal, which is a sustainable investments in public housing.
Yeah, that's great. We really need to have more public housing. So why do you think that folks around here should support the Green New Deal? Because we have a lot of fossil fuel extraction around here with coal. And fracking has not been big here so much, but it's only because of pricing. And once pricing starts to look favorable, they're probably going to start fracking again. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Green New Deal has kind of been radicalized by the right because it's, AOC is someone who introduced it, it's just become this large issue. But really, the Green New Deal is what's entirely necessary and it's a response to what the scientists have been telling us for years. Right before the COP25 conference in Madrid, the UN released a report and they said that, no one's meeting the requirements basically for the Paris Climate Agreement, and we need to reduce our climate emissions by like 7% each year from 2020 to 2030. So it's not really an option to not, be open to considering what, moving past a carbon-dependent economy looks like. So in the Knoxville community and area, I think it's really important that we take that into account, and that with a comprehensive plan that the Green New Deal proposes, those jobs and those economies will be supported, and we have a great opportunity with wind energy and solar in this area to really profit from this as well. It's not like our economy has to take a hit. There's a way to be environmentally sustainable and for our economy to grow. I think the Green New Deal is a great overarching brand to make that happen.
Yeah, it's a pretty exciting, large structural change because we have moved in the direction of fossil fuels and all the benefits we've received as a society, even though we've had a lot of negative effects from having a fossil fuel economy. And so I think people are really frightened about what they have to give up. So that's how it's been pitched by the right. The right is saying, this is what you have to give up. And what would your response be to someone who says, you're going to make me live in a cave?
Well, my response would be like, what do we stand to lose from inaction? Like, whenever someone says, oh, well, it's going to add to the deficit or things like that, even, it's like, well, what's the cost of not doing anything? If solving climate change costs $10 trillion, not solving climate change would cost the economy so much more. It's not even comparable. So if we ensure that it's a just and equitable transition, the economy after a Green New Deal would be much better and more sustainable and stronger than our fossil fuel-based economy right now. So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's just so much interesting pushback, and I think the pushback that we see from conservatives seems to be a fear-based pushback. It's like what you're going to lose instead of what you're going to gain. And so I think reframing that is really important. You're going to have an industry that can provide jobs that don't poison you, don't give you black lung, don't make you sick, don't destroy your water supplies, don't require a gazillion dollars in cleanup costs that then go to the taxpayer because TVA is not paying for it. So we're going to pay for it with increased utility costs. And I think there's just a lot of benefits, but I also think that some people have a hard time seing how it can accrue back to them. We seem to be a one generation society now where it's like, well, am I going to get the benefit? Well, then if I'm not going to benefit, then we're not going to do this.
Yeah, and I think it's all about having that one-on-one conversation with people, talking to individuals, your friends, your family, and telling them about the Green New Deal and why it's a good thing and why we need it. I think that really builds the support for the Green New Deal. And also, the Green New Deal is wildly popular in a lot of key battleground states. Polling from Data for Progress shows that over 70% of Tennesseans support the boosted economy that a Green New Deal would provide. So these policies are wildly popular in even conservative states.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the human cost of a coal-based economy? We don't need to look any further than the Kingston coal ash spill. Hundreds of lives lost, and many more are sick to this day. And it's just atrocious that we're still seeing the effects of that now, and we're only going to see that continue as TVA. They're closing down Bull Run right now, correct? And now they're trying to move those wastes to another community, which could have again horribly negative impacts on people's lives.
Yeah. In fact, after the spill, the health departments came out and did these surveys, and they were talking to people who had been sick all their lives and were living downwind of the coal ash ponds because the wind was blowing ash, was piling up on their houses, they were breathing it, they had all these chronic respiratory problems. And that costs a lot to the economy. So people didn't necessarily die from living near the coal ash, but with a lot of these health issues the quality of their life was compromised, and they probably missed a lot of work, and they probably weren't as productive. And we need productive people in our society. And if we're going to keep poisoning them for our energy needs, we're not going to have productive people in our society. So,
and that's also a good reason why the Green New Deal also includes providing health care to people and a minimum wage, decent job, things like that, so that people don't have to bear the burden of that poisoning effect as much as they would have to otherwise.
Solely, because it is borne by them. The companies come in, they make these plants and these processes, and then they leave. I mean, you just have to go to coal country to see what's happened. When mining pulls out, then there's nothing. There's nothing for the community. So, it's very impressive. So I looked at the goals for the national goals, and you'll be planning a number of actions as far out as 2021 and then 2025. When you guys look into the future, what do you want to see for both the climate change movement, and where would you like us to be with dealing with climate change? I'll ask you first, Simon.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be really, really important to be electing climate champions up and down the ballot. I don't think you get a bigger bang for your buck than electing someone who is supportive of the Green New Deal and is going to, tackle climate change head on when they go into elected office. Donating to all these environment organizations is wonderful, but we need to, have change at the highest levels of our government to really move our economy in the direction that it needs to go. So moving forward, it's going to be really important that the Sunrise Movement is very involved politically, but it's also important that we, like in the Knoxville community, are holding TVA accountable and are trying to make change in that way as well.
Yeah, and I think some of the biggest things with Sunrise Movement is we have a 3-phase plan. It's organize, vote, strike, and we're in the organizing phase right now. We're organizing a bunch of young people to get involved in local elections, presidential elections, national elections, things like that, to get climate champions elected in come next November. So that's the vote phase, and then strike, keep striking, hold those climate champions accountable, because just electing them in there isn't enough, even if they're really great and they want to they support a Green New Deal. You just need to keep the pressure on and make sure that something happens.
Yeah, those are great goals. As an environmental activist, I spent 20 years doing environmental work, and I used to say to people, if the people on the other side are not interested in your issues, you're not going to get anywhere. So you can knock on that door all day and they are not going to help you out. And I saw this at the state level. When I moved here, it was democratically controlled, and then it became Republican controlled. But I got to tell you, things didn't really change for the environment in that transition. I mean, I'd say they got worse, but to some degree. But if we're not making sure that those folks that are elected are interested and willing to stand up for something like combating climate change, you can do all the actions you want. And so I'm really glad to hear that you're going to be involved politically. Will you guys be endorsing candidates?
We plan to, yes. We're starting our No Fossil Fuel Money campaign, which is asking local politicians and candidates to sign the pledge to not take more than $200 from a fossil fuel executive or corporation. And then that's the first phase, and then we'll move into endorsements and working on campaigns and stuff like that.
Oh, that's interesting. They can take 200. How do you guys come up with that number?
Well, because we didn't do it.
Oh.
But, yeah, the No Fossil Fuel Money Coalition came up with it.
Oh,
but,
that's so interesting, because I would think it'd be like 0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
okay.
I think because they can have personal opinions that can be supportive of a Green New Deal, just like people who are involved in fossil fuel companies.
Well, it is hard because it takes so much money to run a campaign. I mean, in some races it's in the millions. For the presidential campaigns, it's in the hundreds of millions. But for congressional races, it's around 5 million is a winning campaign, and so it's hard to get 5 million. It's hard to make that many phone calls, and so it's really tempting when a PAC comes along and said, we'll give you the max, and then all of our people will give you the max, and then suddenly you're off to the races, and you don't even realize what you've signed up for. So I'm glad that you guys are letting people know, letting the candidates know that you will vote for them when they don't take that money, because ultimately it's the vote that counts.
Right, and we want our elected officials to represent us, not corporations. So, which is why it's inspiring that so many candidates this election cycle are not taking any corporate PAC money.
That's right, yeah. I think this has been a really great opportunity to fix some of these things without having, we can't get campaign finance laws, passed. But what's been great is organizations like you holding candidates accountable to say, we're not going to vote for you if you're going to take that kind of money. And it really does show, I think, the power that people have. Individuals don't realize the power that they have over their legislators. And I think with the election of Donald Trump, that has definitely happened, that people have suddenly decided they're going to make their voices heard, and then suddenly they realize they've got a fair amount of personal power. So that's great. Well, so do either of you have ambitions for political office, since we're on Democratic television?
I don't think so at this point.
I might, maybe.
You might?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's a possibility.
Yeah, don't discount that. It's actually, I think, more fun than people realize. And it's you have your occasional bad days, but you have that with any job. So. Yeah, well, this has been, is there anything else that you would like to add that we haven't covered? Your next meetings, website, Facebook, all that?
Yeah, so we're not going to be meeting again until after New Year's, just because the majority of our members are students, and pretty much everyone's already gone for winter break. So I'm headed back to Nashville, a 3-hour drive right after this.
Okay,
So,
all right.
yeah, but if you follow us on our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Sunrise Knox, you can find when our next meeting date and location is, and it'll probably be after New Year's.
Okay.
Yeah, and we typically meet on Tuesdays at 7. So
On campus?
yes.
Okay, and your Facebook, and what other social media are you guys using?
So we have Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram,
Okay.
and I think they're all at Sunrise Knox
Okay.
is the handle there.
Alrighty. Well, this is really exciting. I'm really grateful that you guys are doing this, and I'm hoping that a lot of young people will get involved, not only in this issue, but getting out the vote. Your cohort did really well in the election. I think turnout for the university was super high in 2018, and so hopefully we can make it even higher. I hear so often that the young people don't vote. I'm like, well, actually. Sadly, it was my generation that didn't come out to vote. So, yeah, so I think, you guys really getting out the vote for young people, because this is going to be your world. And you guys have a stake in it. And so will you be participating, doing voter registration on campus? Are you going to be working with the Young Dems? And
Most likely,
Most
yes.
likely, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And definitely for the viewers, like, talk to 3 young people in your life. Get them, just talk to them about Sunrise Movement, what we are, what we do. Talk to them about the Green New Deal and why it's important to get out there and vote. So.
Yeah, and I think this will be a really good way for folks to galvanize their feelings about something as encompassing as climate change, because that affects what you drink and what you're breathing and what you're eating, and the environment affects all aspects of your life, and this could not be more critical, I think, at this time. So I know we were talking a little bit earlier about the logarithmic nature of climate change, and I think what we're seeing now is only going to be accelerated.
Right.
And so, like you said, it's going to come at a large cost. How are we going to deal with all of these weather events and all the destruction they cause? And that's a huge impact. So this is going to be crucial to your generation. So any way that the Democrats can support you, Democrats, please support the Sunrise Movement.
Yeah. That would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah. Well, this is great. So you guys are working on campus. Do you have any upcoming events in the new year?
In the new year, we don't have, the Sunrise Movement nationally and just global climate strikes. There's going to be another wave of climate strikes around Earth Day.
Oh, so in April?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the final dates haven't been ironed out yet, so I can't tell you anything definitively, but we'll definitely be hosting one here in Knoxville. So be on the lookout for that and definitely come out to that.
Yeah. So you guys have done some actions on campus. I think we just put a picture of the rock. You guys are decorated the rock.
Yes.
Look at that, 10 years, climate strikes. Yeah. Yeah, so great. Well, so we'll look forward to a number of actions. We'll be sure to get can the older Democrats come and participate?
For sure. We
Yes.
welcome anyone, all ages, young at heart.
The young at heart. Yeah, that's us. All righty. Well, it was great to have you guys here.
Thank you for
and
having us.
and have a great holiday. I know. Are you traveling back?
I'm from Knoxville.
Oh, you're from
so-
Knoxville, so you're staying.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming, and thank you all for tuning in tonight.